Welcome to our sixth episode and final episode of this year of Tokenizing Everything. With me today is lawyer Nicola Massella. It's a pleasure to have him here today. He's an expert in the tokenization space, and he will provide some great insights and regarding the legalities of tokenization. So before we continue, I would have to mention that everything that is mentioned today is solely based on personal opinions and does not reflect the opinion of Amazing Blocks, STRM partners, or any other involved party. So yeah, let's begin. Thanks for being here today with me, Nicola. Pleasure to have you. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really glad to participate.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to catch up. We met at the European Blockchain Convention, and since then, a kind of a collaboration has been emerging between our parties. So it's great to have you on our show. And yeah, let's begin. I mean, you're a lawyer, obviously. So can you tell our listeners a bit about how you kind of morphed into the tokenization space or got into the tokenization space as a lawyer? What was your experience there, and what led to this decision?
Yeah, so I started my experience with blockchain and DLT during university. Basically, my primary matter is financial markets law. And from the very beginning, I noticed the potential and also this phenomena regarding ICO. It was really kind of entering the financial markets law, but it at that period in 2016 was completely unregulated and was also a kind of enigma for regulators because they didn't really understand what was the technology behind and also the movement behind it. Also, Bitcoin was seen with kind of like suspicious. Instead, right now, as you all know, there are institutional investors entering in the market. So I started from this approach that was financial markets law and started to see how this phenomena was evolving. And in the end, I'm quite glad about the most recent developments because all these crypto asset phenomena is moving toward compliance and so toward security token offerings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you mentioned is happening. I mean, we need compliance in this space to onboard, the traditional world of finance, to onboard the legal system to the blockchain space in general. So what to you, there's always or to a lot of people in the blockchain space in general, there's a moment that defines basically their path to fully go all in on this space. Was there like a moment, like a wow experience for you? That's something I always ask my guests that really made you convince, okay, hey, this is something I don't just want to do legal lawyer stuff like most lawyers. I want to try something new. I want to try something innovative. Was there like something where you realized, okay, this has the potential to disrupt, the legal aspects, the tech aspects, and the financial sector?
Yeah, so actually, when I was in university and starting to get interested into this space, I entered the Blockchain Education Network, the Italian section. And there was this event they organized with the guys from Seed Venture, which is an Italian project, but now based in London. And this is a tokenization platform for basically startups and incubators, accelerators, so really for the financing of new business, of new initiatives, and is fully decentralized. And there I've seen really the kind of revolution from the world I was coming from, which was kind of traditional financial market law, in which basically in order to have access to the real market, so to the trading venue, the stock market, you have to be a bank, and quite a big one actually. This intermediation there is not known basically, and this I really see DLT and blockchain as a possibility for the democratization of the access to capital markets, and indeed a democratization of capital markets itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point there that you mentioned. I mean, financial inclusion is really something that the blockchain as a technology as a whole can bring to the financial sector, and to kind of decentralize the space that is quite centralized as of now. So it's always great to see, I mean, there's not too many lawyers right now that focus that much. So it's great to see pioneers like you and having you join us. So also something interesting, you recently joined STRM Partners. If I remember correctly, before that you were at an established law firm in Italy. and now you joined Storm Partners. Can you tell our listeners a bit what led to this decision to join Storm Partners, and also maybe give a brief intro about what Storm Partners is?
Yeah, sure. So I was in a kind of traditional law firm doing international trade law, corporate law. I liked that job, but was not really stimulating from this side. As I said, I really have a belief in the future of DLT and blockchain. And so this opportunity came up. This is a new agency providing solutions for blockchain and crypto asset industries and initiatives in a general sense, let's say. So we have different departments. I'm of course entitled in the legal department, but we have also marketing, PR, business development, and basically we assist tokenization project as well as other businesses operating in this space, providing different kind of services thanks to our kind of differentiated team of specialists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's crucial in this space to kind of, tap into every direction and kind of cover every aspect, because there's just such an educational gap, whether it's finance, tech, or law, that needs to be closed. So it's great to see people or organizations like yours to kind of cover it all in one solution. And I think you have an auspicious future there. So let's dive right into the topic of tokenization. I mean, from a regulatory and legal point, you're the true expert here. So maybe you can give our listeners a brief overview to you from a legal perspective. What are the pain points that are currently still harming, the emergence of a true token economy in our, in the European space maybe, and then also in the international space when compared to, the US or China?
Yeah. So let's start from a brief history of it, because now there has been kind of a lot of years in this space of some regulations law coming up from the very beginning. From 2014, the Financial Action Task Force entered with some opinions on what they were called virtual currencies at the time, saying that there was a huge risk for money laundering and terrorist financing. So the first approach of the worldwide regulators was in the matter of anti-money laundering and KYC, know your clients policies and obligations. And indeed, currently, right now, the European law is focusing only on this. So wallet providers and exchange platforms, they have to acquire this information, which in the end is the same information that banks need to acquire on their clients, or basically money service providers. But what is developing right now is a much more complicated and sophisticated regulation, which entails basically the possibility of tokenized assets. One of the first countries to issue a regulation in this sense has been Liechtenstein, with actually, in my opinion, a quite good regulation, because there is no really deep description of blockchain or DLT technology, but there is a kind of really clear and established framework for the tokenization of assets. For example, every kind of assets, from shares, bonds, to also physical assets. And in my opinion, it makes quite clear how to move if you want to tokenize something there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's great that you mentioned Liechtenstein. So I'm happy to hear, a legal expert like you also mentioned it, because we're really proud of leveraging this solution there. So do you think the Liechtenstein solution will be kind of, a role model for the EU as a whole? Or do you think that the EU will implement their own laws? What is your take on that?
It's difficult to say this. So basically, right now, the European Commission published the digital finance package, which includes two proposals of regulation in this matter. The first one is for the markets in crypto assets, and actually regulates all those crypto assets which are not securities, which in European law is financial instruments. And then there is another regulation which provides for a pilot regime regarding trading venues that or market infrastructure in a wider sense that want to use DLT for their operating activities. In my opinion, actually, the really interesting proposal is the second one, because it allows trading venues and usual existing stock markets to use distributed ledger technology. And so, in my opinion, is really near a future in which I found a company with the shareholder book, which is recorded on a distributed ledger. And then basically all my shares are tokens. And from the very beginning, from equity crowdfunding or any other form of fundraising, I decide to jump in, I can basically only sell tokens. And then in the end, these tokens will be traded on trading venues, traditional trading venues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's great that you mentioned that most people don't really understand or know that there's actually two proposals and not just one. So it's great that you give our listeners this insight.
Yeah, I've seen that everybody's kind of talking only about the first one, which I mean is of course an interesting regulation. I'm not saying it, but I think that the most important part of tokenization is the tokenization of securities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I fully agree. This will be what actually, fosters mainstream adoption for the traditional sector. Of course, there's a lot of pioneers, trading with cryptocurrencies, getting into the space, but what's really going to, help our, financial sector go all in on the blockchain space is actually what you mentioned correctly, the tokenization of true real world use cases.
Also,
so anyway,
let me add one thing. I do not think that cryptocurrencies are not important, but I think that, for example, Bitcoin, it does not require regulation, also because regulation can do really a little about Bitcoin. So regulation is needed in other parts and in other possible applications of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. So let's regulate what's need a regulation, and that lets what it doesn't need a regulation to be free.
Yeah, I mean, that is the core principle of blockchain anyway, the decentralized aspect, even the privacy aspect, so to say. And I think there will be a lot of challenges in the future, and also, kind of morphing or merging, for instance, the DeFi space with this more or less KYC-less with the tokenized asset space. So yeah, let's talk a bit more about regulation in Europe, though. You mentioned Liechtenstein, obviously, as a great jurisdiction. Another great jurisdiction that is very forward-thinking is Switzerland. Can you give us a bit more insights on regarding how these two jurisdictions compare to each other, maybe the differences on the one hand, but also how they complement each other and how these jurisdictions can be combined for fostering the token economy?
Yeah, so Switzerland is my home jurisdiction, let's say, as I'm based in Switzerland. In this regard, we have to really understand that the Liechtenstein approach and the Swiss approach are really different. In Switzerland, the Financial Conduct Authority issued some guidelines regarding ICOs without a legislation of it, basically introducing these three categories division of payment tokens, utility tokens, and security tokens, in order to give some certainty to all the ICOs that were happening in Switzerland in the last years. And so with these kind of short guidelines, they succeeded in building up a kind of trustable and certain regulatory framework for the issuance of tokens. Right now, they are moving forward on a legislation regarding the implementation of distributed ledger technology into Swiss law, with an approach which, again, is totally different from Liechtenstein, because they are basically changing the civil code, the code of obligations, and every concerning Swiss law in this regard, introducing the possibility of having DLT-based digital assets everywhere in the Swiss law. So, for example, in this new law, there is the possibility to have the shareholder book on a distributed ledger. And so, yeah, you can found a company with the shares that are digital assets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you mentioned. So one thing that is always a topic in the tokenization space, and we see it also from ourselves, is passporting, for instance.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit more about passporting in terms of these different
Yeah.
jurisdictions and how there may be issues, but what is also possible in this
This
regard?
is really in my opinion, the complementing of Swiss and Liechtenstein jurisdiction, because Switzerland is outside the European Union. It's nothing to do with the European Union. You can do your ICO there, but then if this ICO in the offering, there are securities. So if is a security token offerings and you want to expand it through all across Europe, basically it's kind of complicated. But if you do it in Liechtenstein, then you can go to the Liechtenstein Financial Conduct Authority, get the approval there, and then use the passporting rule provided for in the prospective regulation, in the European prospectus regulation, and go basically in a much easier way to the other financial conduct authorities of European member states to get their approval. Why? Because Liechtenstein, different from Switzerland, is part of the European Economic Area. So it's not a member state of the European Union, but still some European regulations applies.
Yeah. I mean, so Liechtenstein basically acts as a bridge between these two worlds, I would say, right? Kind of, enabling also Swiss projects to be, passported throughout the EU. So that's a great use case. Another obviously country in the DACH region that is making some move lately is Germany, which just the other day actually made it legal to allow electronic securities to be recorded using blockchain. Can you tell our listeners a bit what's your take on this move, by the German government? And do you think that they will kind of, have a pioneer approach there, or are they kind of just following other jurisdictions? What is your take on this?
In my opinion, it's really similar to what Switzerland is doing. So they are introducing in the kind of normal law, let's say, the possibility of having tokenized assets. In my opinion, is a really smart move. I think that really all European countries would add in their law the possibility of having assets recorded on a distributed ledger. And of course, it makes much more easier to have the offering of these tokens, because in the end, you have really a lot of legal uncertainty regarding the fact that these shares are actually shares. The laws provide for this form of shares. So from the legal point of view, a token representing a share with this kind of laws is a share. The token is only the digital form of this share.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of differentiation that needs to be made here, whether it's a digital twin or not, and so on. Yeah, so there's a lot of legal hurdles that are still obviously present that we need to solve. But it's great to see jurisdictions, taking a pioneer approach and trying to be or stay disruptive and innovative. Yeah.
Also, one thing to add. So this is a kind of simple explanation. In the end, as a lawyer, I must say that you always have to really check the proper law, go through the text, to see what's really is providing for, because there could be some slightly differences that actually are not so little when it comes to the concrete. So in my opinion, the principle is good, then you have to see what the real text is and how it is implemented.
Yeah, you basically have to deep dive into the law a bit more, like back
always.
in the university days. Yeah. I definitely see this. So let's continue a bit with use cases for tokenization. What to you generally are, the best use cases? I mean, on the one hand, sure, you can tokenize company shares, but on the other hand, you can tokenize any type of illiquid asset. So what to you are maybe the most auspicious use cases on the one hand, and on the other hand, from a legal standpoint, maybe the most difficult use cases to implement with compliance?
Yeah, for example, actually, I have a really good example, the example of the bill of lading. Because my previous law firm, Zunarelli and Associates, is a major law firm in Italy for global trade. And so every day we were facing issues and problems regarding global trade. And the bill of lading in the global trade is probably the main document. It's a document of title. So basically it's a document with you can go in the port in which the ship is arriving and claim the goods on the ship. So if you have this document in your hand, you can claim the goods. But it's a paper document. In a digital world, you have to ship by post these documents from one place to another in the world, and they can lose it. It happened to me. It happened to me once to handle this case, in which was kind of weird and also hard to solve it, because the ship was in the sea, was traveling, and you have no bill of lading in order to claim the goods. And also this document is related to the letter of credit, the banking, and all the subject involved in global trade. And it's not really possible, in my opinion, in this digitalized world to continue to operate with a paper document. It even doesn't make sense, and is a burden on global trade operators. So regarding the electronic bill of ladings, much attempts have been done, but the thing is that global trade, it relates as from a regulatory point of view to international law. So we have some international conventions on it, and of course the international conventions that are now into force, they're old, they do not provide for electronic documents. The new Rotterdam rules, they actually provide for electronic documents, for the electronic bill of lading, but they are not into force because a lot of countries, they didn't ratify the Rotterdam rules. So we need basically some developments on the legal side in order to apply DLT in global trade. And in my opinion, global trade would be a perfect use case.
So basically, like, an international law needs to be in place to be able to seamlessly and efficiently manage, the compliance aspect and other aspects regarding the bill of lading. Yeah. So regarding, aside from the bill of lading, which I know that you're currently writing an article on, right? So yeah. I guess our listeners can look forward to this. I will also, from Amazing Box side, add a little part about the technological aspect. So stay tuned regarding this. What are other use cases that you see as quite interesting, apart from traditional company shares and the bill of lading, of course, which I think is making you a pioneer, a double pioneer, basically, in the tokenization space. You're a pioneer from the legal side, but then also I think you're the only person I have heard talking about tokenizing the bill of lading. So it's definitely very interesting, and I'd like everybody to
I'm not the only one, but we are a few.
Yeah, but I mean, for people that are not familiar with it. So anyway, apart from this, are there any other use cases that you see as quite interesting, and what to you are they?
Actually, there are a lot, but for matter of time, I would cite only a few of them. So in my opinion, the tokenization of equity crowdfunding campaign could be really interesting, because now equity crowdfunding, I love it, equity crowdfunding, because a startup can raise funds from the crowd, so from people, and not only from venture capital or angel investors or this kind of work. But right now, for the investor to invest in an equity crowdfunding campaign, it's really a matter of faith, let's say, because basically you put this money inside the company, and for 5 years or 6 years, you are not able to have any return. Only maybe if the company is acquired by a bigger one. Otherwise, you have to wait that the company basically becomes public and goes on a stock exchange, get listed, basically. So if you tokenize this equity crowdfunding campaign, what you actually receive is tokens representing your participation in the company, so your shares. And then, of course, you can trade those shares. And I mean, could be risky in the beginning, but in the end, you give the possibility to investor to make a more liquid investment, and so also to be free to liquidate the investment if they need it. And in my opinion, in the end, it will enlarge the market for equity crowdfunding.
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect use case. Basically, with the right platform, with just a few clicks, so to say, you can go through the KYC, onboard the investors, and then just issue the tokens. Yeah. So I definitely see your vision there. So last but not least, something that I always like to ask, my guests, which obviously you cannot give a definite answer to, especially as a lawyer, but it's still interesting to get the different perspectives on this. Just out of the blue, where do you see blockchain and tokenization, in 10 years from now?
In the stock market.
In the stock market.
In 10 years, in my opinion, the stock exchange, they will operate through DLT technology, because it is a better technology. But I'm not saying it. The European Securities and Market Authorities in 2017, I guess, I don't remember specifically, but they published a really good paper illustrating the benefits in a matter of settlement, clearing, transparency. It's basically a superior technology for the purposes of stock market and capital markets. And also it could allow really a new path for fundraising for companies from the very early phase to the stock market, so to the public phase. So from small companies to really big corporations, you can start and live this life with your shareholder book tokenized and your shares that are tokens, and you can issue new ones according to the corporate law. But in the end, you use the same technology and you can go from 10 shareholders to 10,000 or 1 million.
Yeah, I think it will be much easier to scale your business. Yeah, so this was a great finish there, Nicola. So I wish you a pleasant evening. I wish you great Christmas, especially stay healthy. I see your beautiful Christmas tree there in the background. So yeah, you're already in the Christmas vibe. That's great.
I'm really in the Christmas mood. We need it this year.
Yeah, definitely. At Christmas, at least we all are used to staying home. So I guess a bit of normality is coming back. Yeah. So yeah, it was great to have you here today, and I'm sure we'll talk soon regarding the article and STRM partners. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me here, for hosting this event. I think that it's really useful for people in this environment to have these discussions, and also to spread some information on this regard. In particular with legal matters, guys, don't be afraid of legal matters. You need it, and actually it's not so bad.
Yeah, that I fully agree with you, especially when it's pioneers like you that kind of address these legal matters. So yeah, to every listener, thank you for watching or listening to today's podcast/interview. As well, I wish you all a Merry Christmas. We will be back in January on the 8th with an amazing block special with a couple of team members on board that will kind of pass review regarding the first couple of months at Amazing Blocks and the development. So stay tuned for this. I wish you all Merry Christmas, stay healthy, and don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much.